President Trump and Elon Musk take questions from the media inside the Oval Office. Tom Homan confirms exactly where the leak came from, and employees of FEMA have been fired over sending $59 million to New York City. All of these stories and more in this video, but let's start with Elon Musk talking about Doge.
So at a high level, if you say what is the goal of Doge, and I think a significant part of the presidency is to restore democracy. This may seem like, well, aren't we in a democracy? Well, if you don't have a feedback loop, okay, we would have to, if you sorry. So I tell you, gravitas can be difficult sometimes. If there's not a good feedback loop from the people to the government, and if you have rule of the bureaucrat, if the bureaucracy is in charge, and then what meaning does democracy actually have? If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy, we live in a bureaucracy. So it's incredibly important that we close that feedback loop, we fix that feedback loop, and that the public's elected representatives, the president, the House, and the Senate, decide what happens, as opposed to a large unelected bureaucracy. This is not to say that there are good people who are in the federal bureaucracy, but you can't have an autonomous federal bureaucracy. You have to have one that is responsive to the people. That's the whole point of a democracy.
Now, it's really good to see that Elon Musk and President Trump together answering questions from the media. You just have to appreciate how transparent this administration is. I mean, if you think of Joe Biden, would he have ever had a press conference like that inside the Oval Office? I'm sure you guys know what the answer is. Now, one of the things that he was referencing was transparency is what's going to create trust. And that's why anytime you guys have questions about exactly what Doge is cutting, it's all on their X profile. Every single day, they're putting up updates about what they are getting rid of, what they have found, what they are cutting. And this is not what we've seen from the federal government ever. This is the first time in history where you're seeing daily updates. However, they're so concerned with the contracts that Elon Musk has, particularly SpaceX with the Pentagon. And here's what he had to say about that.
I can just ask a follow-up to the Pentagon contracts. If you have received billions of dollars in contracts from the Pentagon, and the president's directing you to look into the Department of Defense, is that a conflict of interest?
Yes, we definitely need to do and are going to do at the president's request.
Does that present a conflict of interest for you?
No, because you'd have to look at the individual contract and say, first of all, I'm not the one, filing the contract. It's people at SpaceX or someone who will be putting for the contract. And I'd like to say, if you see any contract where where it was awarded to SpaceX and it wasn't by far the best value for money for the taxpayer, let me know, because every one of them was.
Now, let me show you the receipts to back all of this up, because my main point about SpaceX and Elon Musk and these contracts that Democrats keep crying over is it's not even top 5. He's not even in the top 5 of companies who have the largest contracts with the Department of Defense. Just think about that for a second, okay? But they're spending all this time complaining about him. Now, let me show you. This is dated June 6th of 2024, Congressional Research Service that looked into the Department of Defense contractors. And what do we find? The top 6 are Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, General Dynamics, Pfizer, the Boeing Company, and Northrop Grumman. So where's SpaceX on that list? And think about this. Lockheed Martin has $46 billion in contracts with the Department of Defense, and Pfizer has $16 million. I wonder why. Now, earlier today, Senator Kennedy from Louisiana made an interesting point about the Democrats who are complaining about Elon Musk.
It strikes me as breathtakingly ironic. The cynic might say cynical, that the people who are screaming so loudly about President Trump's decision to audit federal spending are the very same people under President Biden who wanted to hire 80,000 new IRS agents with guns to audit the American people. As I've said before, if it weren't for double standards, there wouldn't be any standards at all in this town.
And what's really behind the double standard is fraud. I mean, that's really what's going on here. Tons of kickbacks, as we know, and they just can't help it. If you're in a position and you're the person appropriating the funds, there's no law to prevent you from being able to get a kickback or getting a place on a board of a company that has a government contract or insider trading like a Nancy Pelosi. There's yet to be any law passed to prevent them from doing that. So, of course, they're going to be the loudest. And that's exactly what Elon Musk brought up.
When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest. So then when you understand that, then it makes sense. Oh, that's why everything they approve all the payments at Treasury. Because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints.
Now, the other point that he made that is actually profound is that the government is, in regards to paying all of this out, all of this taxpayer dollars to every single program and agency, their mindset is minimizing the complaints and the feedback that they get. That's why they just approve all payments. That's insane. I mean, just think about that. If this was your bank account, imagine all of the money going out is never reviewed. I mean, you would have a serious problem with that, especially if you go into debt. But again, Democrats don't see it that way. And that's why it's really good that Speaker Johnson came out today and reaffirmed his support not only for Doge, but called out the Democratic Party to their face.
As I said last week, the Democratic Party is in a completely different place right now. There's no identified leader of the party. They don't have a clear vision. They seem rudderless. In hopes of finding themselves, they've latched onto this new shiny object called the rule of law. Well, we'd like to welcome them to the concept. It would be admirable if they hadn't spent the last 4 years with their heads buried in the sand while Biden literally trampled over the rule of law with no objection. In fact, many Democrats cheered that lawlessness, like when the Biden administration unconstitutionally forced the middle class to pay the student loans of doctors and lawyers, when they illegally mandated that private companies implement vaccine requirements, when they radically rewrote Title IX to undermine women's rights. Those things were actually illegal, and the Democratic Party cheered it. They didn't oppose it at all.
He's spot on. The Democrats believe what President Trump and Elon Musk is doing is unconstitutional. That's why you're hearing the buzzword. We have a constitutional crisis on our hands. And so, again, they're focused on that, but not on the fraud that is continuing to be exposed by Elon Musk. Here is another example of how crazy this really is.
You know, there's crazy things like just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone who's 150? I don't know. Okay. They should be on the Guinness Book of World Records. They're missing out. So, you know, that's a case where, like, I think they're probably dead. It's my guess. Or they should be very famous, one of the two. And then there's a whole bunch of Social Security payments where there's no identifying information. Well, like, why is there no identifying information? Obviously, we want to make sure that people who deserve to receive Social Security do receive it, and that they receive it quickly and accurately.
So it was a great press conference, much needed. I'm glad they actually did it to answer some of these tough questions, I guess. Because these are the same questions they keep asking every single day. That is the media, because they have nothing else to really talk about, because they refuse to report on the truth. They refuse to actually report on the fraud. They would rather spend their time reporting on the person finding the fraud. And let me give you another example of that. Here is CNN falling into this trap with Elon Musk trolling them over him changing his username on X. Watch.
Now, the disruptor-in-chief, Elon Musk, who apparently has adopted the alias, at least he changed his social media handle to Harry Balls, tweeted this morning, "Democracy in America is being destroyed by judicial coup. An activist judge is not a real judge."
Yeah, isn't that crazy? They're so obsessed with Elon Musk that they're now referring to his new username, which we know is just him trolling the media, because they're too obsessed. They cannot think for themselves at this point. Now, one of the biggest, I guess, narratives that they're pushing now is that President Trump will defy whatever orders come from the judges that are blocking some of these moves that the Trump administration has been making. Well, as we always have said, the Democrats and the media continue to overreact. And here is Trump proving them wrong once again, that he doesn't plan to defy any orders from a judge, but he definitely plans to.
If a judge does block one of your policies, part of your agenda, will you abide by that ruling? Will you comply?
Well, I always abide by the courts, and then I'll have to appeal it. But then what he's done is he slowed down the momentum, and it gives crooked people more time to cover up the books. You know, if a person's crooked and they get caught, other people see that, and all of a sudden it becomes harder later on. So, yeah, the answer is I always abide by the courts, always abide by them, and will appeal. But appeals take a long time, and I would hope that a judge, if you go into a judge and you show him, here's a corrupt situation, we have a check to be sent, but we found it to be corrupt. Do you want us to send this corrupt check to a person, or do you want us not to give it and give it back to the taxpayer? I would hope a judge would say, don't send it, give it back to the taxpayer.
Yeah, if I can add to that, what we're finding is that a bunch of the fraud is not even going to Americans. So I think we can all agree that if there's going to be fraud, it should at least go to Americans.
Yeah, so between President Trump and Elon Musk, that's more than enough common sense that we need in the federal government to truly create reform. That's what American voters want. That's exactly why Trump was elected, amongst other things, of course. And the only thing the Democrats continue to do is become very deranged about every single thing that takes place. And while they're doing that, and I've been saying this since the beginning, as you guys know, when they're focused on Elon Musk and Trump, they are not focused on the American voter. And so during one of the recent hearings, here is a voter saying just that I think you'll find some value in.
It is clear that these regulations are not put in place with us in mind, and that needs to stop. And the fact that, Mr. Raskin, you're here this whole time we've been here, you've just been complaining about the process. I'll call it a process. And again, I'm not disagreeing with your issues right now around Musk and the process that's following Mr. Vladek, the process that you're following. At some point, what is the end game? Isn't the end game to make us, the American people, better off? Isn't it? Isn't it? No, I hear you saying that the stuff that would make us better off doesn't matter. All you care about right now is a process of Musk and his associates are not doing this the right way. Is the goal moral and right or not? If you say it is, as I think you should be saying, then the fight shouldn't be about, we need to take Musk down or Trump down. Let us rethink that if you want, but keep your eye on the ball, and your ball should be me. It should be me. I'm sorry, it should be me. Yeah. It should be me. How do we make me better off? Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
You bet, and by me, you mean the American people.
Couldn't have said it better. I mean, this is not really about being Democrat or Republican. Again, it's about common sense. And that one side continues to focus on the other side and not on the American people. Now, that was from the committee, the Judiciary Committee, actually. They had a hearing today on reigning in the administrative state. This is in regards to regulation and administrative law reform. And that's why she was there. And her passion about what she was saying is warranted, especially when you hear the advice that Democrats are running with, like this one from Congressman Maxine Dexter out of Oregon. Watch this.
I've been told I have 30 seconds. So I am going to tell you that we do have to. I don't swear in public very well, but we have to fuck Trump. Please don't tell my children that I just did that.
Well, that was a little humiliating. I don't know where she was going with all that. And when you say, "Hey, please don't tell my children that I said something," of course they're going to find out. That's the way life works, right? So that's the advice, I guess, they're giving out to their voter base on what to do about President Trump. Now, this takes us to the next story, where Tom Homan has confirmed that a leak in regards to ICE raids originated from FBI. Yes, you've heard it. The unelected bureaucrats that Democrats are technically complaining about. They're getting in the way of what the American people voted for. Let's hear this story.
Yeah, so a really big issue that we've seen now, because we've seen several operations set up by the Department of Homeland Security by ICE to go in on these targeted operations. But unfortunately, they're being leaked. And when these operations are leaked, they're ending up being delayed. They have to switch things up because Tom Homan says the bad guys know that they're coming. So last night, the borders are actually said they're investigating the leaks in both Colorado and now Los Angeles. Homan says that they believe they've identified who is behind each one of these leaks, and they're going to be seeking prosecution. So Homan says that they believe one tracks back to the FBI. They say the attorney general is investigating this one right now. They want this person fired without pension. So that is what we expect to see out of the Trump administration in the coming days. But Homan said, though, he said this is not a game. This is putting the officers' lives at risk. And also it gives the bad guys a heads up, right? They went into Colorado looking to arrest 100 Tren de Aragua gang members. I think they ended up with one, Nicole, because that operation was leaked. Those guys were able to scatter like cockroaches. So that is what they're up against right now. And they're going after the people that are responsible for these leaks.
Now imagine that. The FBI is leaking when these ICE raids are supposed to occur, meaning the federal government, the unelected bureaucrats, are getting in the way of what American citizens voted for. Now, Secretary Kristi Noem said this: the FBI is so corrupt. We will work with any and every agency to stop leaks and prosecute those crooked deep state agents to the fullest extent of the law. And so I do hope that they find out exactly who that was and they're held accountable and they make it public, that they let the American voters know, hey, here's exactly what happened. And this is why we're doing what we are doing.
I've been on several of these operations, the men and women of the FBI. They're great patriots, and they're out there helping us to take public safety threats off the street. But we've already found one leak, and that's being dealt with by DHS-IG. And it wasn't FBI, but it was somebody within DHS. Secretary Noem, she said that the second leak appears to be someone in the FBI. Stuff that I've seen leads us to believe it's FBI. I've talked to the Deputy Attorney General. He's opened up a criminal investigation. We'll hold that person responsible. You know, I don't care what the political beliefs are. I don't care if they think they're doing the right thing by, arresting public safety threats that are here illegally. The thing is, though, when they leak this information, it puts officers at great risk. It's only a matter of time before officers get ambushed by someone that just don't care. And they'll be waiting for ICE agents and DEA and FBI agents walk into that building and get ambushed. So this is not a joke. And when we find out who this is and we can prove who it is, they'll be criminally investigated and prosecuted. And I have no regrets to that. They need to be held criminally responsible for that.
And that's why we need Kash Patel confirmed. There's also reports that Tulsi Gabbard may be confirmed tonight. We'll see. But all in all, when you have the FBI leaking information like this, it just shows you how much that agency needs to be gutted, how they need to get the rot out of there. And it's going to be painful, but it needs to happen because, again, the American people voted for security. They don't want TDA gang members taking over apartment complexes. And I want to see, will Democrats defend FBI agents leaking this information? Because at the end of the day, all the American people want is accountability. That's why this next story is very interesting. We told you last night that FEMA was exposed by Elon Musk for spending $59 million to house illegal migrants in New York City. Well, I guess they have found the individuals who actually pushed those payments out, and they are fired.
Fox News Alert moments ago, we received this together. We received a statement from the DHS regarding the $59 million sent from FEMA to New York City migrants last week. Quote, 4 employees being fired today for circumventing leadership and unilaterally making the egregious payment for hotels for migrants in New York City. We have not announced it yet. So we have it first. There's going to be firings, the names are going to be out, and let's bring in New York Congressman Mike Lawler. Congressman, your thought about that move?
Well, it's long overdue, frankly. These funds have been misappropriated going back to the Biden administration, and New York City, a sanctuary city, has been wasting billions of dollars of taxpayer money, billions with a B, to provide free housing, clothing, food, education, and health care to illegal immigrants, including criminal aliens that are here illegally.
And every time you hear that, it just makes you upset. Because what about our veterans? What about hard-working, middle-class American citizens who pay their taxes? What about them? What about people who are disabled in our country? It's just so interesting how they were willing to throw so much money at individuals who broke the law by crossing the border illegally than they are at citizens who clearly have contributed to our society. Now, here is the individual that was actually behind those payments. This is the former now chief financial officer by the name of Mary Commons. And so she's out. And the quote that's coming from DHS is this: firings include FEMA's chief financial officer, 2 program analysts, and a grant specialist. Under President Trump and Secretary Noem's leadership, DHS will not sit idly and allow deep state activists to undermine the will and safety of the American people. Okay, so let me get your guys' answer in the comment section below. Do you agree with the Democratic Party saying that President Trump and Elon Musk, they're not following the rule of law here? Do you believe they have a point? Obviously, I don't. I don't believe they have any credibility whatsoever. I don't even want to hear them use the words rule of law because President Biden ruined that for them, clearly. But anyways, let me know what you guys' thoughts are about all of this in the comment section below. Now, speaking of the rule of law, there were individuals within FEMA who defied President Trump's executive orders by sending $59 million to New York City hotels in an effort to house illegal migrants. And these aren't just any type of hotels. We're talking luxury. There are so many crazy details that you're going to want to hear about. So if you're interested in that story and more from yesterday, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.